Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining here today. We're going to talk about identifying your brand and your value prop. Um, a lot of people here, obviously, in the staffing market, pretty much everyone, and a lot within healthcare as well. But I think in staffing as a whole, we're seeing that it's getting more and more difficult to sell your service. And many people are still doing a great job at it, but we're going to dive into what a value prop should look like, how it should associate with your brand, some examples of very, very good value props we've seen in just various businesses around right now that are very successful, and talk about how we can get that across to clients and candidates to grow our business. Let's jump into it. I want to keep this as concise as possible, but still opening up your mind to some new perspective. Then we'll talk about kind of the next steps after that. So let's just get into defining a value proposition. I think a lot of times we throw this term around, and a lot of people, and maybe within your teams or even yourself, may not know exactly what I mean when I say value prop. So I do like to start there. Myself, I mean, I had success in sales before I knew what a value prop really was by definition. So to sum it up, it's a promise of value to be delivered and experienced by your customer. So that is when you are pitching to them, essentially, you are getting your value prop across to them, whether it's a candidate or a client. We'll focus a lot on the client side here, especially in the market right now. I think candidates are more easily available than ever before, while clients seem to be getting more difficult. But an effective value prop should communicate what your unique offering is. So we'll get very much into what unique means and how you're unique in the staffing market. It needs to communicate relief from individual or organizational pain. So it could be just one person within the process that experiences this relief from pain, or it could be both them and the organization, or that person could be relaying in addressing a topic of the entire organization. So we'll get more into that. And then ideally, there's going to be individual and/or organizational gain associated with it. So something you need to always keep in mind, it's much more effective, both short term and long term, to sell to someone and to communicate to them what gain they can get out of your product. People do like insurances against negative effects, but if there's no negative effect currently available, then you really need to talk about how they can get gains out of your service. There's not a ton of people that just look to protect themselves proactively from pain points, but if you can get across to someone what they can gain from something, it's much easier to sell. So we'll address both pieces. So your value prop needs to achieve the following things, and it needs to be clear and it needs to be concise. And one thing I want everyone to consider here is the average attention span of a human being right now. And if you look way back in the 80s, 90s, it was extremely long because there was less distraction. If you're looking about the year 2000, I believe it was roughly 15 seconds that the average human attention span was. And now it's down to 7 or 8 seconds. Reason being, there's a million things going on. You have your phone that's always in front of you. You have probably another desk phone right next to you, a computer in front of you, TVs up on the walls, people around you. There's distractions everywhere. So you need to be clear and concise to get your message across to someone, capture their attention, and then continue to retain attention through this value prop. In your value prop, you need to define your target customer. So they have to know if it's them, right? And that's something that's often overlooked. You need to define who you are selling to, and then next, from who it will benefit with, you need to get into the problem that you're solving. And that can be either in the present or it can be in the future, as I mentioned. But if it's in the future, you're going to need something from their past to identify with, right? If someone's never experienced a pain that you're targeting before with your solution, it's very tough for them to envision what it's like if it might happen. But if you have someone who's dealt with these pains before, then you can bring them back and have them relate to that time and sell a better source of insurance against it for the future, for solving that problem. And then, as we just mentioned, capturing the attention of the target. And that is done most easily through being unique. We're going to really get into what unique means and how you become unique in this market where a lot of people are doing the same thing. Value props, they have to be relevant. They have to be realistic, right? We can't promise them the world and not deliver. You might get in, even if you break in for a sale, break in and start to develop that customer. If it's unrealistic, it's going to come back to bite you in the butt. So it needs to be relevant, it needs to be realistic, and it needs to trigger emotions of the target customer. Most people, when you're calling in, right, I talk about this all the time in training, there's a subconscious barrier to a salesperson cold calling. It's why they try to hang up on you so fast. It happens to everyone. It's because they have that subconscious wall, the negative emotion that says, this person is trying to sell me on something. If you're being sold on something, you're having control taken away from you. So you want to make sure you address those emotions and really capture them in a positive light to get the person curious, to get them drawing towards you instead of pushing away. So something to keep in mind while we start to talk about this more. So strong value props, let's look at some, and they're going to be outside the staffing world. But Uber, they've obviously done pretty good as far as getting a customer base, right? A lot of people use it. I don't hear anyone say, I'm going to call a taxi anymore. They say, I'm going to call an Uber, maybe call a Lyft. A lot of people still, even if they're using Lyft, call it Uber. They're really the first ones to jump in. And a lot of it's due to the value prop, right? So they're a transportation company at the end of the day. They do, in the end, the same service for the most part as a taxi company does. They get you from point A to point B. But they've made some changes, some very unique changes, and they've communicated it well to the market to the point where the taxis are essentially relying on state legislation and city legislation to keep Uber from taking their entire market. And their value prop, the one you see probably most often, it's really their brand in the value prop. It's the smartest way to get around. So then you look at their value prop and you see it in a lot of their marketing, and it's tap a button, get a ride. So what's that selling to? Selling to the convenience of it, right? If you got a taxi before, you had to have cash. I remember if I was going out to the bars on a weekend or something, and someone would have to run to the ATM and get the cab driver cash before he took off. So that was a pain. That was a pain point. People didn't have cash on them. It moved to everyone had debit cards, credit cards, and yet we still had to use cash. And then they finally did put in where you could swipe it, but it was too late at that point. And still, you need a card on you. Next, they always on, always available. So they have the convenience of being able to, get it, tap a button on your phone, pay for it on your phone, everything's right in front of you. The always on, always available was the pain of trying to get a cab, right? You see it, it's wintertime, you're on the curb in New York City or any big city, you're trying to hail down a cab. They keep driving right by you. The back's full with people already. You can't find a ride. And you don't know when it's coming, too. Late at night, don't know if you're going to get a ride, especially in smaller cities and rural areas. You weren't sure. Now, with Uber, it's always on, always available. You're going to know when you look at your phone, hey, this is my ride. Someone's going to be around that's tapped in. This is when they're coming. It was the convenience and the reassurance that you could get the ride when you wanted it. No matter the time, it was simple. And so they've done a very, very good job with that as well. And then just what you see, probably just as much as the smartest way to get around is just 3 words: request, ride, pay. That is concise. That is to the point. It outlines the process. It outlines pains, gains, everything in 3 words associated with their unique offering. So Uber's a great one. And they've been able, that's such a strong value prop that their marketing has really captured them a huge piece of the market without having to sell very much. As far as traditional on the phones, call, close deals type sales. They've been able to just market, get people to download the app, and they strategically continue to market that way. The other thing they do is it's multidimensional. So they also have their value prop that applies to individuals who want to work for Uber, right? So Uber is essentially work on demand. It's you can work as much as you want. You're your own boss. It's simple. You get paid on this structure. If you want to work 1 hour, take 5 off and work an hour again. You have that flexibility. You can have work-life balance. Look into anything that's advertising for drivers with Uber, and it will appeal to that. Be your own boss, work your own schedule, make a lot of money on your own set terms. So they do a great job with that. Then look at a brand, right? And the brand is for you companies that may do more than just one thing, or maybe, you know, you're in a marketing role or you're with some type of corporate sales for the company. Nike is a great example. Nike essentially makes shoes. They're an apparel company, right? They have clothing, things like that. But everything with Nike's value prop is around enablement through innovation. If you look at their marketing, if you look at their sales campaigns, everything has an athlete involved, right? And Nike does a million different things, but they have athletes involved. And what that's saying is that this is the choice of high performance people in this athletic area. And then there's stylishness to it, and they target that a lot. But it's essentially, it's more than just saying we have a great quality shoe that feels really great to walk around in, or you know, this will help with your, you know, your knee ligaments, you know, the soreness you have in your knees or whatever it is. They don't market those gains that are there in a lot of their products. But when the Nike Shock comes out, they talk about the technology innovation through their apparel, right? When that Shock came out, everyone wanted it. It was 120, 140 bucks. It was way higher price than, you know, maybe your Reebok athletic shoe or your Adidas athletic shoe. And Nike has stayed a superior price product in many cases, especially for just your typical running shoe and athletic shoe and all that apparel. And the other thing they do is they put in everyone's mind that the technology, the innovation will make you instantly that successful athletic person. The product is the success. You throw on these Nike Shocks, they're better performing through our technology and innovation, and everyone is an athlete when they wear them. So every single Nike ad, every piece of marketing stuff, sales stuff, it has those top level athletes, and those top level athletes sign on with the Nike brand. It attracts the people they want because of the brand they've built and their targeted value prop to their customer. So just two examples, but you can look at a million different examples of this. You can look at Apple, who is at the end of the day, they are a computer company to start, but they sell innovation, right? So that's why you look outside, anytime the iPhone, whatever number they're on now, say it's 13, 12, I don't know. The iPhone 11, let's say, comes out today, everyone's in line. You walk through that line, no one has the Apple 4S phone. They all have the 9 or the 10 that came right before the 11. And they're selling on the innovation, and they know that their customers will line up to trade in their perfectly functioning phone to get that latest piece of Apple innovation. Their whole brand, their value prop is around consistently having an innovative approach to technology. So that is 100% what Apple does. There's all types of these big brands. You look at how they've taken a product, they've branded their company a certain way based on certain beliefs, certain ways of doing business, and then their value prop hits all those pieces we talked about. It's unique, it targets the customer, it shows the pain and the solution that they are looking to get across to the client. So now let's bring in the staffing market, because obviously, all right, great, Uber, brand new service comes out. The market was dominated by taxis before that. Let's talk about the staffing market and what we're seeing out there and maybe the struggles that you guys are all dealing with. So initially, the staffing market, whenever you go back, and I know a lot of you are in healthcare staffing, right? And there's you know, 3 pretty much big players at the top of the staffing market in healthcare. But other segments are like that as well. You have your big guys, and then you have a lot of the little guys. Few people in between. And I'll tell you, the few people that are in between typically have a unique value prop. They haven't got to the point of those others yet. But you see a lot of people that are floating around, smaller numbers, not having amazing year over year growth, or they have that quick growth and then they hit a wall. And that's because initially, when these top companies launched way back, before I was in the market, before many of you were, they're search companies, and they've continued to do that. They were targeting short-staffed organizations, and it was unique at the time they started. I can even remember when I started in healthcare staffing doing locum tenens, probably 50% of the calls were educating on what a locum tenens doctor was, a temp doctor. Many other lines of business were like that. Wait, people travel around, do this temp work, because it was a new concept to a lot of places. So it was unique. It alleviated most pain of being short staffed. And I say most because it just didn't hit everything. And we'll talk about all of the pain in 1 second. And it offered potential for gain. So that temp placement, if it was a great placement, could help your organization. Maybe it converted to perm. In some cases, they like the person so much. The person could be an asset to them, but most times, because of the premium rates, because there's a third party involved in searching for that candidate that has to be paid, it didn't really offer a ton of potential for gain. So the market has continued on like that. Many of the clients that I work with, that we work with here at Ivy, they are doing the same thing as the big guys. They're going out, chasing down, asking for job needs, selling the same things, really subjective terms about their quality service, their great credentialing department, all of these things, exactly the same as the big guys. The big companies out there have so much more manpower, so much more money to market. They're going to beat you every time. It's just, that's the simplest way to put it. You have to do something or present something differently to even get the time of day. And when you look at the pain points and start to think about them more, you'll understand this. So the market growth has allowed, for some success, but there's been no real disruption in the market. Disruption gets attention. Disruption captures attention and keeps attention, especially if it works. Works and produces will be what continues to keep it over the long term. And that, for the few disruptions there's been in the staffing market, is still yet to be seen. But the crowded market will need change, and it's very crowded right now. So let's look at the market disruption, and this applies again to healthcare big time, but we see it everywhere. Whether it's technology has their VMS companies, you have accounting, finance, whatever it is. There's VMS everywhere. And for many of you, healthcare, it has been a very tough obstacle. It's also been a necessary evil at times for you, that you have to, you need those jobs. A lot of you depend on those jobs. Let's look at what the VMS is, what it does, and we can learn from their value prop, likely more than the delivery piece on the back end. The VMS companies are capturing exclusivity with clients through a superior value prop. And so one of the things with the value prop that they have, the offering is unique. We're going to talk about that in a second. It targets all level of pain. So in any organization, there's typically 3 people that can be involved in any large scale decision regarding the staffing market. And we'll see those in 1 second as well. But the VMS, it targets them perfectly. It's an amazingly made sales offering due to the value prop. And then it communicates a gain that the traditional search firms can't. So let's dive into what that is. So here's the pain and gain. And this is not the VMS model yet, but we're going to talk about how it applies to each. But these are the 3 contact segments within an organization that will be typically somewhat involved in a hiring decision, in a staffing decision, in any major decision. So anyone that's worked with me, and I know there's a number of you on there, I always say start with the department leaders. Nothing has changed in that, but let's think about other areas of opportunity, especially if you're trying to sell in facility-wide or organization-wide contract and staffing. You may need to touch multiple contact spots. If you're trying to get an individual need or individual consideration or speed to market, that's why we stay with the directors. And those directors can usually point you one way or the other if there's more people involved. But let's just talk about it, because there's times where you speak with all of these individuals and they all have unique pain points. So let's talk about HR and recruiting and why they're typically the toughest ones to sell, because they say, hey, we're all set. We have our agencies. We have a contract with this company. They take care of us. In the pain that they have from being short-staffed or being short-staffed before, and they envision in the future, is they have an increased workload, right? That is not their only role to deal with a locums need or a temporary staffing need for any of you other, verticals in staffing. And it becomes urgent and it increases the workload. No one wants more work thrown on their desk, especially when they have other responsibilities. They get too many calls. This is one the VMS definitely targeted with their unique value prop. We'll talk about it a little bit more. Too many calls. You hear it all the time. They don't even answer their phone anymore. A lot of these recruiters in HR, especially if they're working from home now, it's tough to get them on the phone, right? They don't respond to your emails, or you get the 2-word answer back because they have a solution. It's usually the bigger companies, the companies that have been around forever, because they look at it. Why would I add 5 more companies when likely these big ones have all their candidates? And that's the thought process. And you can't necessarily blame them for that, because we're not giving them anything different about us. Varying processes, right? If I have to manage 3 processes, it's more difficult than the contract I have in place with the company that does pretty darn good. The communication piece, you have to deal with the turnover within different organizations. You have to deal with someone, a new point of contact, your relationship isn't as good with, so your communication isn't as good with yet. And there can be lapses in communication there. Then onboarding processes as well. The more processes a recruiter has, the more work it is for them. And that's why they typically say, I don't care. I don't care that this need isn't filled right now. This company typically does the job for me. And it's more simplistic for me because I have other things to do. And that's why they're not answering the calls. You can't capture their attention because you're just saying, hey, I have a candidate for you. This person's great. They have these certifications. They can do these different skills. And they're available now. Guess what? Everyone on earth has that candidate, right? And most times that candidate's made up. It's not working. So stop doing it. And let's find a unique value prop. Department leaders is next. So that's your people that, if you're calling into IT, it might be your director of IT. If you're calling into a hospital, it might be a director of whatever specialty you work in. It's going to be the person that is on the floor and oversees the department. Be your director of accounting finance when you're doing A&F placements. But what they deal with is increased workload, right? Because they're down staff. They're short staffed. Someone has to pick that up. And usually it's the leader of the department that has to pick up the slack. That means, hey, maybe they have to work late nights. They don't get to go to their kid's soccer game. They have to pick up some weekend shifts. It's just more work for them than what they signed up for because they don't have the solution they need. On the physician side, and this really goes with every specialty, the people in your department get an increased workload, and that turns into burnout. That can be more issues within your department. If you say, listen, we're down someone, it's not your fault. It's mine as the leadership of the department and other people in the organization that help me recruit talent. We're down right now, and we are going to put that work on your desk. Well, your employee's not going to be that happy about that, right? Because they're not getting more pay, but they get more workload. That's tough. Scheduling issues. You're going to have to juggle different schedules. That is more effort, more time. Continuity of care, continuity of work in other verticals. And so continuity of care is a big one with healthcare. People want to come in and they want the same doctor to be there for an extended period of time. You see articles all the time about different temp locums or temp workers coming in. There are articles in newspapers that people don't understand that they're still competent people. They see them as travelers and they don't know the facility and their expertise. They don't believe the expertise is as high because it's just random different providers coming in or workers coming in. Those people also have to come in and learn the systems and how the organization works and the processes. So there's a lot of variables that cause pain for these department leaders. Quality is always something that's a pain point. You have a worker that comes in, they're not living up to the standards of that position. They're not producing in the same manner. More problems. For healthcare patient dissatisfaction, that's huge. Liability, right? You have someone working in your department who has not been onboarded the same. They came in as a Band-Aid solution. They're there to stop the bleeding, whether it's revenue loss or whatever it is, patients not being seen, work not getting done. They're a liability to make an error because you haven't done your full permanent vetting process. You have to trust that agency you're working with. And then for executives, it is a different set of things. And executives at companies, if I'm going to call a spade here, about the bottom line, right? And so whatever business it's in, they hired that position that they now lost because it generates revenue somehow within the organization. So loss of revenue is huge. That is something that appeals to them. If you talk to them about, hey, listen, if you're talking to a COO of a company, you say, listen, I know if you sign up for this process with me, you won't have to deal with the influx of calls. They're not getting that same pain as recruiting and HR are getting. So that doesn't appeal to them. So lots of revenue, return on investment, right? They want to make money off that temporary solution, which gets even more difficult. But if you can provide that, that will help them with their growth, which has been stunted by turnover. In healthcare, patient dissatisfaction, right? Your reputation matters. Patient satisfaction scores go into a lot of government reimbursements for healthcare facilities. Other verticals, there is similar satisfaction of your customers that goes into it. It affects your brand if you don't have the proper staff. Then varying financial terms. You have a bunch of different agencies you're working with. They all have different net terms. It causes more confusion. It causes errors to happen. It might cause disruptions in your company cash flow. These are real pain points. And then liability up top is always something they think about, because one, a big lawsuit can really hurt a company. It can ruin a company in some cases where you have smaller clients. So now looking at these segments, they're very different things that appeal to all of them. And so I want to talk about one last thing here with the VMS, right? So let's think about the VMS, what they did when they came in. This will help you kind of craft your value prop. And when the VMS came in, they said to HR and recruiting, listen, no more getting calls from 9 million different agencies. No more varying processes. You don't have to communicate with the agencies anymore. When you have an order, put it in our portal and we'll take it from there. So they didn't have to deal with that workload anymore. They didn't have to deal with, they'll still get the calls, but they can ignore them or turn them down. There's no reason for most of these VMSs, when they're clients, they don't have to talk with you, the agency, anymore. Alleviated HR and recruiting's major pain point. So then the department leaders, it appealed to them because there's a process, right? This defined process they sold to your department heads, that when they were talking to all three of these contacts, you don't have to worry about your subpar candidates anymore. You don't have to worry about all these scheduling issues, continuity of care, patient dissatisfaction, liability. We are going to vet all of these candidates that we get from agencies. You can trust that they have to upload this, and that, show the certifications. We pre-vet to make sure they're in the right places at the right time. And then everything will flow through us. You don't have to worry about the agency's credentialing department that you're working with. We are going to make sure that these candidates are quality candidates for you in advance. You don't have to do all this. We'll arrange the interviews with you. Everything we have to do, you just need one single point of contact, and everything will work through your recruiting department anyways, because they love this solution. It appealed to them. Can't blame them. The executives, it really, really helped on the loss of revenue and return on investment. It didn't fix the return on investment. It didn't completely fix the loss of revenue, but they make sure they get them at a market rate, right? They control rates. They agree upon keeping it at a certain level. That's why you see capped rates in these VMS systems, right? It's not, hey, we'll negotiate this. Go in at whatever rate you want. You don't negotiate it like you would a direct client. It's very, very different. So they ensure that they're not getting outrageous rates in most cases. It helps them with the speed to get it out to everyone. So rather than having those 2 or 3 agencies you have a relationship with, and really cut down on the loss of revenue by getting it out to all the companies, you don't have to talk to them because they're signed up with our technology. And so we'll help with that. And the other things are very much a product of that. And then back end solutions, right? So to your CFO, to those people that are in the executive level, what it does there, it's one uniform process. They dictate the terms, the VMS dictates the terms with the facility, and now everything flows back through there with the same terms. And the VMS then has their set terms with the agency. So they took care of that. They had it. So there's not the liability on your end of having cash flow issues or having a risk issue because you don't know what's in the 10 contracts you have with agencies. We have this one contract set for you. Let us take care of the dirty work. And they effectively got a concise, unique value prop as a total solution to the three main buckets within a facility that experience pain and want gain from staffing services. That's why they took off. That's why these VMSs are taking about 20% of the market share in healthcare. And it's going to be bigger in locum tenens, should I say, where a lot of you are from. But in other ones, like nursing, VMS is huge, right? Because it's higher volume. So there's more stuff to deal with. So that's why it's taken over there. But it will move into other industries that it's not in yet. So if you're saying, hey, I'm in aerospace technology staffing, which is very much a thing, may not have entered that yet as much, but it will get there because it sells so easily. But it doesn't necessarily deliver that well. So we'll get into that another time. But if someone has a very good sales pitch, it makes sense through a great value prop that captures attention. It's going to continue to build. And you're going to see that unless you change something yourself. You have to reinvent and repackage the service that you're offering. So when you're looking at the market, you really need to, as I just said, reinvent and repackage. And that's because the large companies control a majority of the market share. That's really, there's no vertical that is full of just little players. You know, it's not a bunch of companies doing 20 million or doing 50 million. It's, you got the big fish. There's usually 2 or 3. They control the majority of the market. There's a few real players under it. And then the rest is great. They're doing well for small little companies. If they want to grow, and they'll need to grow in the coming years, I assure you that, you need to reinvent or repackage what you're doing. And we've talked about a lot with COVID, right? Everyone had to pivot, was the word. So pivoting is what you need to do. Now, I'm not saying change fundamentally what you do, and that's fine candidates for organizations that can use your service, but you have to do it differently. Reputation, money, and manpower are going to let those big companies keep winning. If I'm Randy's Locums or Randy's Staffing and I'm calling a company, why on earth would they work with me over the AMNs, the CHGs, the big companies out there that have a million of me there? I mean, realistically, and say I was specialized, right? And I was just doing, one specialty of healthcare. They probably have 100, 150 people doing what I do. It's just, there's no logical reason. Maybe you like my personality. I always want to sell on that, but it still has to be tangible. How does your personality help me any more than those 100 people? And it's tough to generate an answer for that makes sense. It has to be relevant. It has to be effective. So you need to do something different. And the VMS industry disrupted it. And that's why they're taking some market share. Just as they start to do that, big guys are smart. I hate to break it to you. They didn't get to the point that they're at now by being dumb. They're buying the VMS companies, right? And that's every vertical you're in. Doesn't matter. Accounting, finance, IT, healthcare, everything. They're buying them because it's smart. And that's what the big companies always do. They make the smart decision and they eat up the smaller companies. And so they're doing that. You can still fight back against it, right? Just like VMS exploded, you just need a strong value prop. You'll start to get that market share back. I've done it with clients recently. It's working. Trust me. It's little pivots in how you deliver. Something that captures their attention, gets you the time of day on the phone. It's something different than, hey, do you have any needs? Sure, I do. But someone's taking care of them. That is more effective than you, and I already have a contract in place with, and they know how to work with me, correctly, how I like to work. So you need to think, why should they work with you? So hopefully this stuff helps in thinking about your value prop. Now, anyone coming here looking to get a value prop given to them, I can't do that right now. Reason being, everyone does have the things they do that are unique, and they need to repackage them. Maybe they have to add a few unique differentiators, but you need to look at what you have for staff. You have to look at yourself, right? Even if I can't control what my company does, I can control a lot about how I deliver the service that we have. So it's looking in the mirror. But what we've been doing is with companies, we offer packages. And if you are interested in doing this, where we come in and we do a value prop lab, where we come in and we discover how can we improve your value prop. And there's great results from this. Some really, throughout the process of doing it with different clients, there's some really innovative ideas, some things that I truly think are some disruptors in the market. It's a fun, great team building experience where you have that 3 days, and it causes everyone to think. There's a lot of great ideas, and they come together and say, all right, well, we have the service perfect, but we just need to repackage it to capture attention. Or maybe they make a minor pivot and they say, all right, this is going to change the game. And we're seeing that instantly getting results after that. Or if you're an individual, go onto our website, www.ivu.club. We have the packages of personal sessions, and just say that you want to get in and talk about your reinventing your value prop. We take into consideration everything you have going on, past successes, where you want to be in the future, and what the vision of your company is, and really start to open up your mind as to how you can repackage and redeliver your value prop to clients, capture their attention, and get the business. If you guys give this a try, right? You have to invest into yourself. It's hard work. I'll never say that it's easy. There's no answer that just universally works for everyone. But look at what VMS did in a top-heavy market. They've made a significant splash in the market. You can do the same thing, but you have to put in the time and effort. If not, if you keep going through the motions, now that these VMSs are controlled by those that paved the way and started each segment of the industry, you'll get crushed. It's going to be too difficult. I hate to say that. I love the market, but you have to invest in yourself. You have to make the change. I would love to do it with you guys. So feel free to reach out, go on the website. There's a million ways to contact me. Call me a million times if you have to, but you want to start acting now before it's too late. So hopefully this opened up everyone's mind. If nothing else, give you perspective on what's going on, what you have to do, and would love to hear from you guys just on feedback in general. So thanks again. Look forward to seeing you for future webinars, and good luck getting together on your value prop. Thanks.